Well, hey, it's Matt Steen, co-founder of Chemistry Staffing, and this is another chemistry conversation. I'm really excited today. I am joined today by Boyd Pelley. So Boyd is the president,
Yep.
co-founder of Church Teams. And you launched this, what? It's been about 20 years, give or take?
Yeah, we started 21 years ago as a small group software.
Small group software. But you've been in ministry for approximately forever.
Yeah, that was exactly right. That was about 10 years into being full-time on church staff when we started this.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of time before that too.
Yeah. And just you're the all-around discipleship guy back and that's why you created this, which is why I'm kind of excited to talk to you today, because you've lived the church world. But now you're really kind of ingrained, not just in the tech world, but in the church tech world, which is its own odd beast.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I would even say the discipleship part of the tech world, even some innovative things like that too. So
super gets super nichey. So what are you learning, man? What you look around the church world? What are you seeing and what are you learning?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? It's been like this a long time. There's been interest in technology, but one thing I think of with COVID, with all the stuff that's happened the last year and a half, it's been interesting to see kind of what churches have done in terms of technology, not just a live streaming thing, which is obvious, right? But besides that, the other ways to interact with folks. Remember when QR codes came out? What was that, like 20 years ago, and died on the vine very quickly?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're back like crazy because of the touchless things. And, they've upgraded a lot of the technology related to it. Ever since the iPhone about 3 or 4 years ago built in the QR code reader in it, it's taken off. So we see that obviously different places, a lot of different ways that people can use that. I see churches using QR codes for all kinds of things. Texting is another way, just relating to the mobile and the texting thing. Of course, we've done the text to church thing for all the different ways that you can use texting to interface the database. Probably the other thing it looks like there's a trend is people really wanting all their data together, because over the time, because of the innovation of technology, you had all these different software companies, whatever, people that innovated different features. And so they had a niche, and pretty soon a church finds itself keeping data in 5 different places. And so what we've done, what we're seeing is a lot of companies like Church Teams and many others that are trying to help churches bring all their data together under one umbrella. And there's lots of different things happening in our industry to kind of do that, and a lot of different approaches to that.
So they're all bring it all in-house, giving people one login instead of 17 different across different platforms.
Exactly. And that way you have all your data one place rather than, and there's a lot of value to that, especially when you want to do analytics. And you want to start pulling in, I want to see what percentage of our people attend small groups more than 50% of the time and give, more than once a month or once a month. Well, you can't have attendance data one place and giving data in another place and be able to pull that kind of stuff together, really. So stuff like that.
You said a scary word there a minute ago. It started with an A. The analytics piece. There's some people get a little nervous about the analytics, but I'm guessing that part of what you're seeing, and tell me I'm wrong, is churches really leaning into taking the data that they've got. How are you seeing churches use that and use it for gospel purposes?
Yeah, there are some pretty amazing things. And honestly, I think we're just going to have to get used to that, because that really is the future. We foresaw years ago to capture all the data in one place so that you can give, and some of the language you hear different places now is to give data a seat at the table around decision making. And pastors and executive teams, they want to have data to support their subjective assumptions. Or they want something more than, last week after church, the chairman of the elders came up to me and said, this is what's going on. Well, that's nice that that person felt that way and great feedback. But how are we getting, what is the data telling us about that? Is there some things that we can do with data, not just surveys and things like that, but you can do that, but real data, like real data points of people attending things, people giving, people signing up for things, prayer requests, notes on people, registry, all those kind of things that are objective data. So the idea there is really to be able to, just provide the feedback to folks on how churches do it. I can talk some more about that if you want, even a few more details, if you like.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious about this because churches still in many ways, and this is going to get me fired. I don't know about you, but churches in many ways is still, pretty old fashioned. Yeah. And we're not known for really leveraging the data that we have well, whether it's, but what I'm hearing you say is part of this season of being forced to rely on technology and being forced to frankly use our church management systems the way that they were designed is also giving us the ability to pull in data, whether it's attendance related or giving related or what, to be able to support some of those decisions. And typically, back in the day, that was a building decision, but it sounds like you're seeing it used in other ways as well.
Yeah. And part of the things I think we're going to see more coming, some of the things that we've been thinking about and working on the last year, 9 months to a year, have been things like, what does a disciple look like in your church? Well, a disciple is going to have a commitment level that Christ is first placed in their life, right? 2 Corinthians 5:17. They're going to have some indication that they love Jesus. By this, all men will know you're my disciples, by the love you have for one another. And so taking core verses like that, and then asking the question, what are the information we have in the database that'll give us an indication of how people are loving each other?
Yeah.
Okay. And so it would be a thing like we have this, call it community attribute on people. And the way that's populated isn't by the admin assistant going in and selecting a drop down and saying this person is, highly committed or highly engaged in community. Instead of that, what we do is with some of the intelligence, with some of the things that, because you've got this data, you can actually set up a report that the system will do automatically. Nobody ever has to touch it. That will go into your data, look at, let's say, people who've attended a small group 5 or more times in the last 13 weeks. And then based on that, it will set this other field that they are regularly involved in community, as opposed to somebody that just happens to be enrolled in community. Right. And then it'll populate that, and you can actually go to that member profile and see, even color coded, here's their commitment level, here's their community level, here's their serving level, here's their leadership level, here's their stewardship level, those things. And it's based on the system running reports automatically to give you feedback based on real data, which is really interesting. And then you can combine those together church-wide. So
that's fascinating, because so many times we talk about our discipleship pipelines or discipleship pathway or whatever the trendy phrase is today. But I think we hesitate to put some of those metrics on it. But it sounds like, and this is, in some of the ways we're using the information that we have to make an assumption on where somebody is, but and then we probably need to have a conversation with somebody to actually make sure that it's checking out in the wash. But
it's exactly right. Like, and some of that is, what classes did they attend? Did they attend and complete that Leadership 101 course that we do? Well, that's one piece of information. And guess what? We have benchmark a date in the database that tracks that. Right. But then also, did we find that after that, they started a small group? and now they're a small group leader, or they're serving in youth ministry or something.
You're able
those are data points as well.
Yeah.
So you can kind of pull those together to say, okay, on the leadership development, this person's at that level based on the information that's in there. Yeah.
That's awesome, and able to kind of track people as you go through and actually see if you're helping people grow spiritually based on that's phenomenal. So I think I know where you're going to go with this, but the question I typically ask is, hey, what are you seeing on the horizon? It sounds like this is more and more, this is what we're going to be seeing.
I think I think it's going to happen both ways. It's going to happen on the discipleship side here. I'll explain what I mean. On the discipleship side like that we can develop the data, which is why it becomes important that we're capturing data. Mm-hmm. Because the information out is only as good as the information in.
Absolutely.
And so we have to work on some of those systems, get the information. But being able to track the different signs of discipleship now, and that's all they are really, is they're signs of discipleship.
Right.
They're pointing a direction. They can't tell you for sure. Just because somebody went to the maturity, 201 class doesn't mean they're a mature Christian, right? Oh. But it points a direction. It's a sign of discipleship, right? And then to be able to do metrics based on that, to see church-wide, here's kind of where we're at over time. How long is somebody involved in our church before they tend to kind of take the next step? Those kind of things. So that's coming. And the more that we're concerned about, or the more that some of this artificial intelligence comes into our technology, the more we'll see that. I mean, look at how some of that technology is used by social media platforms and advertising and stuff like that. We know, right? They understand our behavior really well and can give us some feedback, sometimes knowing us better than we know ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, is on the evangelism side. Okay. And I think part of what we're going to see going forward is churches doing more with their websites than having them just as a brochure of, hey, if you want to come to this, it's at this time here, or even as awesome as they are, you see a lot of churches the last few years that have a, prepare for your visit,
plan your visit
plan your visit thing on the website. As good as that is, that has an assumption that somebody's ready to come.
Yeah.
And a lot of times our evangelism that we do is about inviting people to come on Sunday. Well, any of us that have been out, there's a certain level of growth or interest that somebody has to respond to an invitation. And I think the more we get away from that world where everybody grew up, around a church or in church, and they've kind of moved away, so you invite them to come. It's familiar territory from them. They have something in the background to come to. The further away we get from that, I think the more we're going to have to fish. I think of it as fishing a little bit deeper to where the wild fish are that have never had the experience and would no more think about coming just with an invitation than you or I might think about going to, I don't know, a Hindu temple, just because it would be so foreign to our experience. So what I think will happen is what happens in typical marketing campaigns is, rather than having a website devoted to our marriage ministry, come to our marriage thing on Tuesday nights. Rather than that, we have a page, and at least the top part of the page is set up as having marital issues. Click here and hear testimony of somebody who's exactly where you are. And it's a 3 or 4 short minute testimony, somebody identifying with them, and then saying, click here and sign up. And we're going to give you some best tips that people with successful marriages in our church have learned. And you sign up essentially for a drip campaign. And you get their information. You're not inviting them to come to anything. You're offering help right from there. So the church becomes a place to do that and set up, and and the software church management software offers the registration for people to sign up, offers the workflow to be able to embed the video in, to do all that kind of content thing, so that you're taking the person at a point of need, moving them to a point of where now they're curious.
Yeah.
And through that curiosity and getting some real help, now they've seen some clips of the sermon. They kind of have an idea of what the pastor's like, what the church is like. So now an invitation doesn't seem as weird.
Yeah.
Because we have kind of developed them to kind of come along. And I think that's kind of the other side that technology, church management software in particular can help with. Because then you're going to have all that data also to be able to kind of move people through that. So really on both sides of the equation, reaching deeper on the evangelism side, tracking the discipleship side most closely. That's kind of where I see church management software headed. Well. Yeah.
And that's awesome. I like how you describe the evangelism piece, because it seems like, well, shucks, it sounds like we're actually developing a relationship with somebody before we invite them to come out, doesn't it? So
exactly right. And a couple of churches I've seen that do that, what they'll actually do is they've got the page, they've got their people to understand that and know the page. So they'll put that on their social site. And so the friends that are coming by can come, jump on, get some help on their marriage.
Yeah.
And then through that process, it becomes natural to relate back to that person who had that, as well as relate to the church. So it also has this component of bringing your congregation into it, not just inviting them to come on Sunday, but allowing them to introduce it to their neighbors and friends to get some help.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the way that you're thinking about this, and I mean, I'm a little geeky about this stuff too, but just love. I mean, and so much of this is that other dirty word in the church is the marketing piece. But I mean, if we're thinking like marketers, and how do we move people closer to the point where we can make that invitation? And I love the tools that you guys are making for that. So tell me, I feel like, I've had, this has been a great conversation. I don't want to monopolize all of your time today, but before we wrap up, what encouragement would you share with pastors that are watching this today?
Probably a lot of pastors are looking at it, and they're like me. When we did our first website for our company, we thought, oh, good, I've got my website done. So I checked it off. Website is now done. And move on. Except for it's not. Because 3 or 4 years later, right, you're going to have to come back. Things have changed. The message has changed. You have to fine tune it. You have to redo it. And so the point there is we have to stay learners, and we have to kind of stay on the edge and realize, think of it like the series you did on marriage 5 years ago, and how it might be very different. If you did the same series on marriage today,
or parenting,
or family, or something like that, because the world has changed. And so it's going to change. And the same way with technology, it's going to evolve and grow and change. So you can look at technology systems that were obviously built 20 years ago, and they've not changed a whole lot since then. Or they've tried to staple something on, something like that. But the encouragement to pastors is really just to stay a learner. And especially as we have more digital natives coming into leadership roles, they're just going to assume that. They're not going to freak out when Google changes the navigation around. That's just what Google does. That's how that works.
It's called Tuesday, right?
Yeah, it's called Tuesday. So staying a learner, knowing that things are constantly going to change, get a refresh, and those constant innovation will drive technology forward. So I would do that. I would encourage church leaders that way. Also, interesting enough, with the technology that they're using, especially church management system, is just to keep an eye on their church management. Does it look like it did 10 years ago? Is it still doing the same sort of thing? there's a lot of changes happening in our industry, a lot of acquisitions, a lot of different things happening. And some of those, I'm not sure how much innovation they're going to bring. Now, they might bring some acquisitions and merging things together. That's one of the strategies for merging tools, is acquiring and then linking different things together. But in terms of fresh innovation, like we were talking about today, looking around and seeing those. So that would be an encouragement. Just kind of keep an eye out, kind of be a learner on some of those, and keep the expectations, high, be alert. And I think it's going to be a different world. It's headed to be a different world. And technology is kind of in the middle of that somehow. And it's going to be a really important part of the future world. Technology is not going to get, it's going to get easier, because there's much more focus on user interface and really user experience to simplify things. There's going to be more automation, like the reports I was talking about that are somewhat complicated, but just set up and let the system take care of it. And so overall, I think stay a learner, be honest with your questions about technology you use, and then know that it's good technology going forward is going to help you figure out how to use it even. So
that's great. That's great. Boyd, thank you so much for the time, man. I really greatly appreciate it. I love the tool that Boyd and his team has put together. If you haven't checked out churchteams.com, well, gee, go do that. How about that? So I check it out, and then
thanks, Matt.
You guys got a ton of content on your site. Just some of your blog posts are super helpful. So go learn more about Boyd that way, and would love to see people engage with you and your crowd as they start to lean into some of the tools that you guys give them. So Boyd, thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for what you do to help churches bring the right teams together. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
You bet.